Many want to train their glutes to look good. Well, we're here to tell you there's worse things that can occur from small, weak glutes other than not filling out your jeans. We're talking about poor posture, sore backs, tight hamstrings, the development of Trendelenburg gait, or even gluteal amnesia. Trendelin what? And what did your butt forget? We'll explain what all this means in this video, but it all stems from having weak glutes. Better yet, because we believe strong glutes are so important, we're also going to give you 3 steps to strengthen your glutes. We're going to include a full program including mobility and strengthening exercises. Unfortunately, weak glutes are a common symptom among the modern population and are becoming more common every day. We are currently living in a world that is rapidly becoming more sedentary. Just a few years ago, the average person reported watching TV for 2 hours a day. Now, it's 4.3. Latest studies show Americans sit almost 10 hours every day. While a lot of this can be due to the way many jobs operate these days, a surprising 82% of people's leisure time is spent sitting. They could be doing anything, like training their glutes, but they choose to sit. Well, we're glad you're here and that you decided to take action against this epidemic. Because even if we set our glutes aside for a minute, sitting this much brings in a host of very serious, chronic health complications which are linked to an increased all-cause mortality. Now, in terms of your glutes, sitting so much and having inactive glutes can actually cause them to forget how to operate, a condition known as gluteal amnesia. When gluteal amnesia kicks in, your body will not function properly, yet you won't even realize it. This is because other muscles will be forced to kick in and compensate for glute inactivity, hiding the issue unless you look for it. This process will continue until you make a conscious decision to stop and reverse it. And that's what this video is about. So what are your glutes supposed to do? In short, a lot. Your glutes are the literal powerhouse of your body. Not only does it power every type of locomotion, it helps build a solid foundation so that your body can perform both upper and lower body movements. For example, when performing an overhead press, a common cue is to clinch the glutes, which will contribute to torso stability. In other words, strong glutes equals strong pressing power. What do the glutes have to do with pressing? Well, your glutes are actually part of an intricate set of muscles known as your posterior chain and lay smack dab in the middle. This posterior chain runs from your neck all the way down your ankles and acts as a flexible support system which controls and braces the entire body. As your glutes lay in the middle, they're especially important and act as a hinge that connects the upper body to the lower body. It basically acts as a hinge for your entire body and is where all movement is derived. Imagine trying to jump or walk without bending at the hips. Not happening. This also makes hip extension its primary function. Hip extension occurs when the hips open up from a closed position or small angle, such as performing a deadlift. However, it also performs hip extension isometrically, meaning it holds the body and the torso in position and keeps it from flexing or bending over. This is crucial to perform any type of power movement, such as a baseball swing or punch. Even overhead pressing requires strong glutes. If your glutes are weak, they're unable to keep the torso pulled back during sitting or walking and results in lower back pain and a host of other issues. We'll go over the rest of your glutes function throughout the video, so be sure to watch it all. We're also going to help you identify if you have inactive glutes, how to activate them, and how to strengthen them. We're going to have all this together in a simple plan, so weak glutes will just be something you watch videos on. Let's get started. Before we start our 3-part process, we first need to decide if this is an issue for you to begin with. To do this, we're going to use 2 tests. The first way to test this is to perform a single leg glute bridge. Lay flat on the ground with your legs extended. Bend one knee up until the shin is sitting vertical to the floor. You will then thrust your hips into the air while keeping the other leg raised from the floor and extended. Thrust all the way up until your hips are fully extended. This is going to require you to perform hip extension, its primary function. Specifically, this occurs when the hips go from its flexed position at the bottom of the movement to a more open position at the top of the position. So your first indicator is how easy this is for you to perform. You should be able to perform a perfect glute bridge relatively easily. If not, you likely have at least a weak pair of glutes or inactive glutes, or both. Can you hold it? That's great, but there can still be issues. We discussed the posterior chain earlier, so we know that hip extension doesn't occur with the glutes alone. At the same time, your knee is also extended during this movement, which can activate the quadriceps as well. Basically, there's a lot going on with this movement, and it can be hard to feel your glutes. In this video, we will teach you how to isolate the glutes with this same movement, but for now, we want to see how your muscles fire naturally. So hold this position at the top and pay attention to where you primarily feel the burn. Ideally, you will feel your glutes working the most, as they should be the primary mover. This would be a good indicator that your bum is firing properly. However, if you feel fatigue in any other muscles, such as your hamstrings or quads, it's an indicator that these muscles are overcompensating due to inactivity of your glutes. After this test, you can move to your second, the single leg jump. To perform the single leg jump, bend one leg at the knee to raise the foot up behind the body. When ready, you will lean over slightly and then explosively propel yourself up into the air and land down on the same leg. During the movement, you're looking for two different indicators of glute function. You first want to track the hips. Another important function of your hips is its role in stability, especially when balancing on one foot. Specifically, this is the job of the gluteus medius, the muscle on the side of your butt. If you've ever stood on one foot and felt your glutes burn, this is what's going on. Now remember when we talked about the Trendelenburg gait? Well, this is a condition caused by the inability of the gluteus medius to keep the hips level while you're walking. As a result, the hips sag to the unsupported side, which results in improper firing of your muscles and overcompensation by surrounding muscles. It also puts strain on the hip joints and can cause a slew of issues in your hips and knees. Therefore, watch your hips during the initial lift-off and during the landing. Ideally, your glutes are strong enough to keep your hips level during both sections of the movement. On the other hand, if your hips sink, it's a good indicator your glutes need some love. You also want to make sure there is no buckling of the knee inward during either part of the test. This is known as knee valgus and can also indicate inactive glutes. If you passed both tests, then congratulations. You probably don't need to go through the first couple of steps, but it can still be beneficial to train your glutes. However, if you fail either one, we'll need to go back to the basics. And don't get down if you need to restrain them. Remember the classic, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or in our case, 1 step back, 2 steps forward. Keep that in mind as we progress. We're now going to show you how to reverse the problem and strengthen your glutes so that they can do what they're supposed to do efficiently. Let's get into it. Let's start with step 1. Your very first job is to check the mobility of the hips and fix it if necessary. Mobility refers to a joint's ability to move freely through a full range of motion. In your case, we are particularly concerned with your hip joint, as this is the joint that the glutes control. If you have poor mobility, you will be unable to place your body in the correct position so that your muscles can function and fire correctly. As a result, the glutes won't function properly, and you'll experience loss in either performance or health, or both. Now, as the hip joint is so complex, there are a lot of areas that could be hindering your mobility. However, due to the widespread epidemic of too much sitting, the primary problem for many people are tight hip flexors. Tight hip flexors can inhibit the glutes' ability to create strength and need to be lengthened and relaxed. With that said, before we go any farther, you need to start increasing your activity levels. Remember that your tight hip flexors are likely due to too much sitting. So this is ultimately the problem you need to fix to prevent recurring issues. Keep in mind that this doesn't necessarily mean it must be intense exercise. It simply means being active. Take your dog for a longer walk. Listen to a podcast while walking rather than watch TV. Walk to the store if it's close enough. Literally anything that gets you on your feet will help significantly. If you do have a sedentary job, make conscious efforts to move more. Take the stairs has become a bit of a cliche, but it's true. Also, getting up every hour and doing a little walk is great as well. Now that you know you want to move more, let's continue with this first part. So, your hip flexors are located on the anterior side of the body and are responsible for flexing the hips. However, prolonged inactivity, especially sitting, can lead to tight hip flexors. Tight hip flexors will inhibit the glutes' ability to contract, as they will not lengthen appropriately. Basically, the flexors and extensors will play a type of tug-of-war, and your flexors will win. That is, unless you address the problem. A quick test can be performed called the kneeling hip extension test. Get on your hands and knees facing away from a wall. Place the top of one foot up on the wall, and then begin to scoot back until your foot is nearly touching your hips. Now bring your other foot up in front as if you were doing a lunge. Extend your hips so that your torso now moves vertically. If you're unable to do this easily or you have to bend over, you likely have a hip extension problem due to your hip flexors. If this is the case, you'll need to improve your hip mobility. We'll give you a full plan in just a minute, but remember this hip extension test as it's also going to be a part of it. Before we give you the mobility test, you can also use another passive test, the Thomas test. The Thomas test can be performed solo or with a partner. You first lay on the edge of a hard table and tuck both of your knees to your chest. In this position, your hips should come to the edge of the table. Now, keeping one knee tucked to your chest, let the other leg drop down passively. If the thigh doesn't break past 0 degrees or the knee stays above the hip, You know that you have tight hip flexors, as they do not allow the leg to drop to 0 degrees. You will follow this hip mobility program until you're able to pass these 2 mobility tests. Step 1. Glute mobility workout. 1. Warm up with an exercise of your choice. This will help warm the body and create a more flexible muscle. 2. Hip flexor rock and roll. This is a good stretch to start your hip routine. Start in a lunge position and be sure to have your torso completely upright. Slide the rear knee backward to extend the hips and then drive your hips forward and down towards your front toe. 3. Wall hip flexor stretch. This is the same as the hip extension test in the beginning of the video. Start your training with your back foot in a position that allows you to have fully extended hips. Gradually scoot your torso back towards the wall until your torso is right up against your foot. 4. Pigeon pose. Start in a raised plank position. Take a leg and pull the thigh in front of the body and the lower leg crossing the body, keeping the back leg fully extended. Allow your torso to lay down across your body. Perform each exercise for 30 seconds for each leg and repeat this cycle 3 times. Recheck the tests weekly so you can measure your progress. For step 2, we're going to improve your glutes' ability to function properly. To do this, you will need to attack this problem in 2 directions. First, you will continue staying active. We're saying this again as this is a must. Now that you have your activity and mobility sorted, you will need to train your glutes how to fire properly again. A re-education camp, if you will. This will require using specific glute exercises that will force you to use your glutes. Doing so will teach you to feel them again. Large compound exercises are great, especially for building strength, and will show you the best ones. However, due to their nature, there's a lot going on with different muscles. As your glutes are just learning to fire again, we'll focus on them in a bit. With that said, the best exercises to use when you're retraining your glutes to fire are isolations. As the name implies, isolation exercises target one muscle and isolates it. For our purposes, this will make it easy for your glutes to learn to properly fire again. Not all isolation exercises are created equal though, especially the glutes. As so much is going on, some isolations make it easier to isolate the glutes. When you first begin your retraining, you want to stick to 3 exercises. These awesome exercises have been shown to be 3 of the best isolations for glutes while minimizing involvement of other muscles. The first exercise is clam shells. Clam shells are great exercises that will isolate the glutes through external rotation. Another important function of the glutes. Lay on your side with your legs on top of each other and aligned with your knees together and bent. Keeping your feet together, rotate the top knee upwards as if it's a clam opening. When you perform this exercise, it can be extremely helpful to place your hands on the top glute and feel the glute working. This helps a stronger mind-muscle connection, which we'll discuss with the next exercise. Your second exercise will be the quadruped hip extension. Get on your hands and knees with a flat back. Extend one leg back and up, maintaining a 90-degree angle throughout this motion. While you can't touch the glutes during this exercise, you can use a strong mind-muscle connection that we just talked about. The mind-muscle connection refers to the body's ability to increase the activation of a muscle by thinking about it with intent. This simple behavior has been shown to increase activation, which in our context will help isolate the glutes. And for the third one, place a band around your ankles and step laterally in one direction for 5 to 10 steps. Then switch directions and step the other way. Perform all of these 3 times a week unloaded until you're able to fire your glutes properly. These are all bodyweight exercises, so you can easily do these at home. Retest yourself by going back to the single leg glute bridge test to see if you can feel the activation move back towards your glutes. Once you're able to confidently perform this movement with only feeling activation in your glutes, throw in the single leg Romanian deadlift. This is a bit more advanced, but will not only isolate the glutes but start to strengthen them a little bit more. As you pull your body up, remember to use your mind-muscle connection to power your glutes so they drive your hips forward. Remember, your goal is to use your glutes, so really concentrate on this. Step 2. Glute re-education. Clam shells, 3 sets of 10 reps. Quadruped hip extension, 3 sets of 10 reps. Banded side step, 3 sets of 5 to 10 reps. Single leg Romanian deadlift, 3 sets of 10 reps. Test yourself with the single leg jump and track the same indicators. If your hips remain level and if your knee caves inward. Once this becomes easy, you're strong enough to move on to step 3. One more step to go. After your glutes have learned to fire again, it's time to start placing greater demands on them. However, we don't want to jump straight into movements like back squats just yet, as there's a lot going on. Step-ups and side step-ups are both great choices. They both involve stepping up to a higher surface and using your leg to pull your body weight up. As the movement is similar, alternate between these every workout. With the step up, you step up to a higher surface in front you, which primarily uses hip extensions. At the same time as you're lifting on a single leg, it will also require stability in your hip by way of glute activation. Lift one foot and place it firmly on an elevated surface. You will then pull your body up by driving your raised leg down. Now the side step up consists of stepping to an elevated surface laterally. Stand with your side facing the box. You then perform a similar motion as the step up in this position. Therefore, in addition to extension, you are forcing the body to perform hip abduction to a much greater degree as well to keep the body from sagging. This is important. For both of these movements, concentrate on prioritizing the leg pulling the body up. Your body's natural inclination will be to use the leg on the ground to help propel your body. It can be very difficult to completely neutralize this movement, but you want to mitigate it as much as you can. Again, be intentional with all these movements. We're then going to go back to where it all started with the barbell glute bridge. In the beginning of the video, we said we would show you how to isolate the glutes during the glute bridge, and here we are. When you perform the bridge, push your feet outwards, as if you're going to extend your knees. This will load your quadriceps, which will mitigate the activity of the hamstrings due to a phenomenon known as reciprocal inhibition. If you think about it, two opposing muscles can't flex at the same time unless you're doing it intentionally to perform an isometric hold. For example, if you flex your biceps, your triceps must relax and vice versa. After the barbell glute bridge, your barbell hip thrust is the next in progression. In fact, the barbell hip thrust is thought to be the best glute exercise in general. Not only can you load with significant weight, it actually acts as an isolation. Now, technically the knees are bent, which can involve the quadriceps, but the glutes are the primary mover by far, so long as they're firing properly. However, use weights that are appropriate for you. If you attempt to use heavy loads too soon, you will not be able to perform the exercise with the proper movement pattern, which completely negates this whole process. Therefore, when you start, go no lower than the 8 to 10 rep range on any of these exercises, and then increase your load on a weekly basis from there if you feel up to it. Step 3. Glute-centric workout. You'll continue with some of the previous exercises as it never hurts to keep your glutes in check. However, now you'll start using weights with these exercises. We'll also be adding in some compound exercises, and remember to always maintain a mind-muscle connection. Remember, you will alternate the lateral step up and step up. In addition, as the single-leg glute bridge and single-leg Romanian deadlift are similar as well, you will alternate these every session too. For all 4 of these exercises, utilize dumbbells to load if possible. Warm up, stair climber 10 to 15 minutes. Barbell hip thrust, 3 sets of 8 reps. Lateral step up or step up, 3 sets of 8 reps. Single leg glute bridge or single leg Romanian deadlift, 3 sets of 10 reps. Clam shell, 2 sets of 15 reps. Quadruped hip extension, 2 sets of 15 reps. Perform this workout twice a week.